Rehman Chishti.
Just by other clarification in relation to what Mr. Ross had asked earlier on the review and the material having been passed by the review individual, those individuals who had allowed the review, but allowed this material by the review, looking at competence, is there any previous occasions where those individuals had acted in a way by allowing material to go on there which they shouldn't have done?
Are you asking me, do we work with the reviewers to make sure that they're making the right calls?
No, let me clarify again.
Yeah,
with regards to the individuals, the material was highlighted to be unacceptable, but then the individual looking at it allowed it to go up. Is that right?
No, not quite. It was flagged as questionable.
Yes.
And then we need a human reviewer to make the call.
And the human reviewer made this call. Is that right?
Yes, and made an incorrect call.
Correct. And that human reviewer who made that incorrect call, had that human reviewer made incorrect calls previously? That's my question.
I do not know in these cases.
Because that goes to the competence of the individuals that you have. So if that reviewer who had allowed this to go on had previously made incorrect decisions, then that clearly shows the issue about competence of your staff has to come into question. Am I right?
I would have to look at the record of these individuals.
You haven't checked that that information with regards to those individuals who had allowed this material to go on?
I personally have not checked, no.
Do you think you should have done that? To look at competence of those individuals?
I think as a company we certainly should have looked at the competence of those individuals.
But you're in charge of that procedure. You yourself have not done that.
I advise on counterterrorism policy.
On this position, you just accepted that the individuals who made that decision to allow it on, I asked you the question, had they made those wrong errors before? You said you can't answer that question, right?
Personally, I cannot answer that question.
Maybe it would have been a good idea to check if those individuals who are making these decisions have previously made incorrect decisions, because at the end of the day, that would show the public out there whether they have confidence in individuals in making the right decisions. Is that right?
I will certainly take that back to our
That's
team.
A fair point, right?
I believe it is a fair point. Of course we want to have quality control.
Right. And that's why people out there and myself would have a real concern about confidence in your procedures. When you come up here representing the organisation, you can't say the individual who made that wrong decision had previously made wrong decisions. I'll leave it at that. The second point I asked, you said, from now on, you're going to be looking at it like a hawk. You're going to take personal responsibility for this. There's no space for that. Does that then mean that if you are back here in 6 months' time, this material is still there, that you'll personally take responsibility and step down from your role because you're not performing?
I will take responsibility for ensuring that this content does not remain online. If it somehow gets past our fail-safes, I am not doing my job to make sure we are doing the right thing to remove this content.
And then taking responsibility for that, in line with what's happened previously, acting like a hawk, making sure it's not there, taking personal responsibility. If in 6 months' time one comes back, you're back here again, and that material is there, then you'll personally step down.
I am responsible for working on terrorism groups around the world. Prescribed groups, prescribed organizations in the UK is a part of my portfolio. There are many other terror groups we are also working to take down their content. I am a single person who is charged with counterterrorism policy. I am pushing as hard as I can.
Rehman Chishti.
Just a couple of
points, if I may. With regards to the tragic and horrific incident at Finsbury Park Mosque, the vile act carried out by Darren Osborne, and the following judgment given by Mrs. Justice Chima Garb to say the short time between seeing the material, being radicalised and carrying out a violent terrorist incident, that the individual had in part been radicalised by seeing material by Tommy Robinson. Your experience, you've worked at the State Department advising on extremism. I've seen you've written a number of books. You've been at a number of think tanks. The material, the vile material put out by Tommy Robinson, just in the question earlier that you raised about your policy and your criteria, does his vile poison material online violate your policy criteria?
I can say in general that hateful content can create an atmosphere that can lead people to radicalize. Whether his specific statements fall foul of our guidelines or not, I cannot tell you without looking at the specific content.
Can I just ask, this is what concerns me. You're saying you cannot tell me without looking at it. There was a High Court decision in which his name was mentioned, that he was linked to having radicalised an individual who carried out terrorist attacks and then you're saying to me, since then, you have not looked at your criteria to see if that individual's material is radicalising individuals with your own expertise in radicalisation and extremism, which is all littered over here. You haven't done that.
I can't speak to this specific content.
Your organisation haven't done that.
I can't speak to that either.
Do you think you should have done that? As an organisation, after there's a High Court judgment to say an individual to be mentioned in that, Tommy Robinson, his vile views had led to an individual being radicalised into carrying out a terrorist attack in the United Kingdom. First duty of the state is to protect its citizens. Following from that judgment, that name is mentioned in that. Do you not think you should have looked at that name and thought if his vile views violate your policy criteria?
I will certainly take it back to our team.